Welcome back to Spanning the State. I'm Brian Noonan.
And I am Kristin Brey. And Wisconsin lawmakers are once again considering expanding Medicaid access for new moms, a proposal that's received bipartisan support in past sessions but has never received a vote in the Assembly. So the bill would give low-income mothers a year of postpartum Medicaid coverage in the effort to improve maternal health outcomes, because currently here in Wisconsin, they only receive 60 days. And we are only one of two states that has not expanded this. It's just basically us and Arkansas. And so yesterday there was a public hearing in front of the State Senate Health Committee on extending postpartum Medicaid in Wisconsin. And Kate Duffy, founder of Motherhood for Good, which is a grassroots group that advocates for legislation for working parents, was there and testified, which was the first time you've ever done that, right?
It was the first time I've ever done that. And they say that anybody can come. It's open to the public to testify. But I felt like, and I said this kind of when I went up there, I felt like I was the only regular person there. It was a lot of doctors, physicians, people in the insurance industry. There was like people from the pro-life groups, Catholic industries, everybody you could imagine, all testifying in support of the bill.
So explain why this is so important, because you're out there, you're trying to drum up a lot of grassroots support. Why does this matter so much?
Yeah, so Medicaid is a really important program we have for low-income individuals, and women can be on it during their pregnancy and afterwards, but for only up to 60 days. And so much of the research and studies show, and all the evidence show, that there's a lot of stuff that comes up after 60 days. And a lot of the stuff actually comes up between like 4 and 9 months, and 80% of it is preventable. So there's about like 50 women a year dying in Wisconsin in that postpartum period, many of whom they lose access to care after 2 months if they can't afford, alternate coverage, which also, even if they could make it work, it's so much paperwork and hassle to go through when you have, like, in normal times, let alone when you have a newborn at home and you're really struggling. So this bill would be to extend that to 12 months for postpartum moms, for them to give them a full year of coverage. And we heard from so many experts, like, it's, of course, a lot of mental health issues and substance use disorder, but also there's a lot of like cardio issues that can happen, and heart failure and sepsis and so many things that can happen well after 60 days.
Well, and the thing is, I mean, I experienced this. It's so interesting to me in our healthcare system, period, regardless of insurance, is in the lead up to giving birth, you are in there, once a month, then every 2 weeks, then every week, right? And so the amount of care you get before you have the baby, and then basically you have the baby, and after your 6 week, as long as everything looks fine to that 6 week appointment, they're like, all right, see you in a year. And you just get there's no actual structure of taking care of women in the system, let alone making sure that everyone has the coverage to be able to get that care.
Yeah, and I mean, people used to talk about in the olden days, right, that there was a village that mothers and families could rely on when they have a baby, and we're seeing more and more there isn't really as much of a village. Everybody is just like living their own lives and moving so fast, and there's not a lot of people that show up for moms, and even if you do, kind of are lucky enough to have the support. So, yep, women are falling through the cracks, and there's a common sense bill out there that has been adopted by 48 states. And you mentioned talking about how it's us and Arkansas. I did learn in the hearing yesterday that actually Arkansas is making moves now. They just passed it out of their Senate committee. So we may be dead last, which is very embarrassing.
And Kristin mentioned this in the intro, there's one person who seems to be standing in the way of this, and that's Robin Vos. What's his deal? What's the problem? What are you hearing from the other people you talk to? And
have we heard from him?
Yeah.
What is Robin Vos's deal? That's a good question. No, we have not heard from him. Well, I have not personally heard from him. I've seen plenty of interviews. He has said basically his caucus doesn't believe that welfare is a wise idea. He believes we give away too much free stuff. He said that in relation to this particular bill last session. He just thinks it's unnecessary, which I don't feel like he should be the one to say that, because it does have so much bipartisan support. I mean, yesterday the majority of the Senate Committee on Health were Republicans, and they were clearly very in support.
I was going to ask when you were testifying, like, what did you see as far as support or nodding heads, or what was the reaction to people in the room?
So many nodding heads over and over and over again. And they did ask some questions, but were very kind and receptive to it. And the committee chair said at one point, she was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure we're all in favor of this bill. It was very clear that, like, you could almost feel the tension. It was very clear that everybody supported this. I held back from, like, asking the question I really wanted to ask when I went up there. So
Which was?
Why can somebody ask Robin Voss why he won't put this forth?
Was there anyone there who testified against it? Did they have
No.
Okay.
And well, I'm sorry you didn't ask that question yesterday. That would have been a great question. So what's the next? Is the only hurdle getting somebody to convince Robin Voss that this is not giving away free stuff, that this is not charity, that this is actually in the best interest of every woman in Wisconsin?
Well, which it is. And by the way, it's also actually smart financially, because when people don't have insurance coverage, emergencies still happen. And then we pay for those as the state. So it would actually be beneficial for everyone, even if you're not a parent. But I think so. It's going to continue to move through the Senate, I have a feeling. But from the Assembly side, the first step is it would need to have a hearing in the Assembly version of the Health Committee, which they also met yesterday. And this was not added to the agenda. So the most important thing is to call your state senator and rep and make sure they're co-sponsors. Over 2/3 of them are.
Okay.
So it's not just him right now. There are other holdouts. But he could put it forward if he wanted to. So he is the one blocking it, and he's said that many times over the past couple of years.
All right. Well, shifting gears as far as other legislation that you're watching as far as for parents in Wisconsin under Motherhood for Good, what are some of the other priorities for you guys?
So there's a lot of education things coming up. Also, childcare is a big one we're pushing for. Really, this year is interesting because it's another budget year. So we're right now kind of looking towards what's going to be happening with the biennial budget, what Governor Evers' proposal is going to have versus what the Joint Finance Committee is going to come back with. So that is, one mega bill that sets the stage for a lot of policy direction for the next 2 years. So we're mostly going to be keeping an eye on that and seeing what we can push forward. But yeah, childcare, education, hopefully some gun safety measures, things like that.
Absolutely. All right. Where can people find more information on Motherhood for Good?
Motherhoodforgood.com, or for the most up to date, you can follow us on Instagram at Motherhood for Good. We're everywhere, but that's the main one.
And support local elections, which we have next week. Our spring primary.
Yes, superintendent is a big race next week that will need to be voted on, and then obviously the primary is coming up on April 1st, which is going to have the big Supreme Court
the general
election.
one's April 1st.
Or yes, that's what I meant. Sorry.
All right. Yeah. Well, Kate Duffy, founder for Motherhood for Good, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Kate.
Thank you for having me.
Sure.
All right. Outdoor Living Unlimited News Time, 1:25.
Warmer temps are on the way. It's time for the Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin.